My name is Theodore Cottingham, and I'm with the School of Life, the School of Love, the School of Being Me now, a school of leadership for you to be the real you. That's you, not in the leadership, another leading you to be who you aren't. I have come that you might have life in these words that help you become me, a me that I am in my Father as I am in me. My Father is in me and I am in my Father. How can that be? I suggest to you that our mind between our ears is what God is. God is the whole. But what if God doesn't need the word God appropriated to it? What if, no matter your name for God, God is God, and God that is in your heart that you pray to answers you? What if God that's in your heart you create, the God that you think exists, creates you? Or really now, do you create it by thinking it? These questions are worthy to be asked. As I seek God, as I have sought God, I came into a place where I let God begin to teach me. And I began to write the first person words of God. And I wrote for years. And I still do. I still can. I speak surrenderedly. And sometimes I am speaking me that you think is a flesh man apart from God. And sometimes I'm speaking first person God. Do you know the difference? Or is my mind not separate? What if God's mind is our mind? All of us, all interconnected. I am in the mind. Do we need to call it God? Is it sacrilegious to call it Father like Jesus did? Instead of trying to appropriate a father figure, see if you can not to place an image around what we're calling the Father. What if the Father is a mind? What if the mind of God is a field, a force field, a state of existence, consciousness, fabric of the cosmos, creator of creation, creator of creators, that which is, I am is. Let's let I am be I am. If you want to call it God, or you want to call it by a name that you choose for God, I will tell you, as I began this quest, I had no idea I would stand here this day and declare the concept of going beyond God. But I tell you this day, before God was, I am. Before God, you were. God came into being. The concept of God came into being. The construct of God was constructed by the mind. The concept of deity, divinity, the concept of some hero, came into being at some point that separated me from me, separated you from you, separated us from each other. And the Big Bang occurred? Or did something else take place? Or is all that we have thought just perpetrated in thought, created in thought, to be the creations of? Are we creating our future, present, or past? Are we beginning to grow up and ask who we are and what this God thing is? God, anomaly of God? If you have listened to my teachings over time, and especially in recent months and recent days, you will know that I have departed more and more from the Orthodox Christian message and said many times in these last few years, I am not a Christian because of the tenets of Christianity immediately separate us from God, say that we need a God, that Jesus was the only Son of God, and that God was the only one that could pay for our sins, and that sin separated us from God, and Jesus' blood paid the price, and that Jesus is coming back to take us away in something called the rapture, to take us to heaven, where we have no idea whatsoever what we would do there or what state of existence we would be in or how limited or unlimited we would be to create, reproduce. What kind of existence would we have? Would we still have a mind? Would we still grow? We haven't had those answers, and the ambiguity of God has spawned many a theory. And I guess most of those theories have seemed to be corroborated by those who put them forth. They think them. They refine their thought. Their thought refines them into a process that they begin to experience their process. self-corroboration, self-validation, self-creation of the self-creating the Creator as the creation sees it. I suggest to you that all of us existed before this world existed, before Earth existed, before we existed to have a mind that could think we're separate. And thinking in separation, yet have some inextricable thread to our past, the creation of energy itself that we existed in, the mind of what in separation we call God, but now growing up to realize and understand the message of love is that we were what we've called God, that God was before the world was, that we were I am. And each one of us were the real us, the real me. Me that's you. You in the Father mind, the universal mind, not limited to time, space, and gravity. You were individual, and you had the whole mind of God in you, and you weren't separate, but all interconnected in ways that we don't have the picture perfect of. I think it was about 1995. That sitting in a Jesus conference, I think in St. Louis, what emerged in me was, I thought, I just want to be me. I want to be who I am. I don't want to be controlled by my wife. I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to be sidelined, sidetracked. I don't want to live a life not being who I really am, just meeting the expectations of others. I want to be who I am, whatever that means. And it was even years later that I began to write the first person words of God. And I wrote thousands of messages, and I made several thousand videos. As I began to be taught by God directly, God began to teach me that I was not separate and that I was God, the mind of God. God said it, you are, I am, you are. We are one. That took a lot of time, effort, and surrender to process those words. And still coming into it, the fullness of it, I am. And then recently I began to see, feel, and experience more and more that what's represented in the Christian Bible is not the work of one mind. Genesis 1, creation. Genesis 2, creation. are eons apart. There are words that speak interchangeably almost, but yet form very different results. And I began over months and months now talking about God of light, God of light, God of love, the God that I know. The God that I know is pure light, love. The God of wrath, vengeance. God that created the concept of hell, whether it exists or not, just the concept of it is a carrot and stick. The concept of heaven and hell. And if you're right and you do good and you please that which you think is about to condemn you any moment, if you believe in all that, it exists for you. It's real to you. You validate it. You are your creation. You experience what you want to believe in your mind. And you are laying out the path for your future. It's in your mind. The kingdom of God, Jesus said, is within you. And I began to see over time that Jesus came into something. He came into the learning system of God, God the Father. But I'm beginning now to see God the Father is not what we've called God. If you will, God and the Father that Jesus spoke of. It's not synonymous. Jesus said the Father was in him and he was in the Father. His mind was in the Father's mind. The Father's mind was in him. There was a unity of conceptual basis for understanding the operation of knowledge beyond the physical world. God, what we call God, the mystery of God, the worship of God, God worship, the separation of who we actually are, to worship it as something we called God didn't come into effect until our mind created it. We existed before the concept of God did. And we are coming back into the knowledge of surrendering to learn, to come into a learning system. That I can call the promise of the new covenant. The God that I know, the God that I experience, the God that has taught me, has led me to a point that I realize all this idea where God said, conquer your enemies, slaughter the men, women, and children, all the cattle, take their lands, take them as slaves, this, that, and the other. That's not the God that I know. The God that I know doesn't need the name God. doesn't require that I worship it, doesn't even want my worship, doesn't want yours either. I've come back over and over to Jesus, the pattern, Jesus being my pattern. Jesus became who he was, that we might become who we are, that we might see we do not need a God figure in our lives. We don't need a God image. We don't need a God to be who we are, who we really are, coming back into who we are before the world was born, before the world came into existence as what we call a planet. That power, that energy, we were and we still are. And the energy of this world will no more limit us with its waves and its molecules. I am who I am now, just beginning to be. Me who is, I am, is one. And you don't understand these things by just wanting. There's a process of surrender. You must come as a little child to the learning of you within the learning system within you. That's how this process of education works. The process, the learning system, the education of one that operates from within for you to see your kingdom and learn how to open it, to reside there, to enter it, and do the works that I did, that Jesus did, that you do now, that you may have done before. You see, time will no longer tell us how to construct our existence. We are not limited to time. And we are not subject to gravity. We are not subject to God. And we will no more try to please God, worship God, or be worthy to enter some other place that's conjured up in our mind, because we are the mind of God before we had that label, before we thought God was separate or something else. So instead of trying to find union with God, if we come into maturity, what we've called God will teach us we were. What I am is before our mind imaged God being something else. So I am no longer trying to find or enjoy or preach about union with God. This I teach of is no longer the school of God, the way that I taught it many years, in a manner of recognizing God's teaching system, that God would teach you that you're not separate. I've come to the point now. I've taught you for years, you are not separate from God, the God mind, the mind that will teach you to write the first person words of God, to transform you into a being of light that's unlimited, that begins to walk and heal the earth. Now, have no God before you. Have no image of something else. I'm using different words. My quest has not changed, but my words have, and my words will no more defeat me. My words will no more keep me locked into a learning system just to learn about God, hope to go be with God, even hope to do the miracles or to heal my family. Coming now into the knowledge of God the Father, coming into a maturity where we don't even need to call it God. We no longer need to appropriate a religious frame of reference. We are no longer trying to satisfy the demands, the commands, or the rules of God, because God, who requires the slaughter of people, is not my Father. It is not love who commands the slaughter of the people whose lands they invade and cause them to be slaves. That is not the God I serve. It's not the God I want. It's not the God I have seen that speaks to me. And it's not the God who now says to me, why do you even use the word God? Just be who I am. I am, you are. You see, the Father in me and the Father. Your mind in God, what was before God, the Father. God did not want us. You see, even now, I've talked about God so much, and yet I speak now of coming, standing this moment, even entitling this, the Manifesto of Me being me. I'm realizing I am not inextricably linked to the idea of God anymore. And that's why I used the title yesterday in my teaching, I am leaving God behind. Perfect surrender requires a humility beyond anything I've ever heard taught. A humility that allows for new knowledge to come forth. And what you do with it, we can call you operating in wisdom or not. But the understanding of who we are, I'm saying to you, the human race was perfect because all of us enjoyed freedom and perfection, perfection and freedom. We roamed the cosmos. We created planets. We operated in different universes. Our mind had not been invaded by neurons, DNA. Programmed to serve an idea, a God. A legion of flesh people. The God that I know did not put me in this flesh. I am not a creation of the God that I'm talking about, that needs no name of God, does not want God worship, but says, come home, sit at my table, let me teach you face to face, and be who I am. Do the things that I do. There's no hierarchy here. There's no rules. There's no vengeance. There's no wrath. That's the real me. That's the real before God was, I am, that I'm coming back into. That maybe poorly I am trying to explain. But I am coming. I am here. And I am not worshiping a God. I am not fearful of your gods. No matter what you call them, no matter what you appropriate their power to be, no matter how you damn me or not as a flesh man, I'm coming into the fullness of me. Before the world was, I am. And I am coming back into the race of I am, inviting all earth people to become I am also. And I will do the works that Jesus did and more for you to see. But not for you to see and know, but for you to do, if you will come also. I am inviting you to come into another realm. A realm that is not flesh led by, nor flesh limited to. Doesn't require God worship, doesn't want God worship. We existed before time, space, and gravity befuddled us. The mind that is the consciousness of the fabric of what we call the universe is us. We are what some call source energy. We are the energy of God. And we will no longer be dumbed down by flesh to be flesh, remaining in flesh, to try to seek the crumbs from a rich man's table, have a few dollars, pay our bills, beg for healing, want health care, and a good retirement. We come out. We come out of this mindset that has so incarcerated us, that says, oh, God created us. Worship God. Here are the rules. And if you be good, you get in. Carrot and stick. No, my friend, the God that I know doesn't want worship. I have a son and a daughter. I don't want them to worship me. And I have written the first person words of God. And I have experienced enough love to begin to understand, to try to articulate this to you. I'm becoming the real me, not God, but the real me that does that does what I want to. And what do I want to do? I want to let everyone on earth know you don't need to stay here. But don't forsake our brethren. Don't leave the remnant ignorant. Let us all hear that we are going to a promised land, that we existed in a state of existence not limited to flesh, having no concept of the limits of time. Where did all that come from? The mind of man, the mind of separation. We created it to serve our own extensions of ourself, our own creation, because we were the creator before the world began. You see, the mind of God is not a unitary thing. What we have called God even is a race, a universal mind. But see, all this concept of God has become so convoluted, so controversial. And everyone almost develops such a passion to protect what they think is sacred, even to the point of banishing family members if they don't believe in God like they do. And some even killing, murdering, slaughtering men, women, and children who don't believe the same. My friend, that is not the God that I know. It's not the God of light. It's not the God of light that I've called the God of light that I now know doesn't even need to be called God. All of this God worship is constructed. It's a frame of reference of living to serve flesh and experiencing what we want to believe, corroborating it to each other and to ourselves. My friend, the resurrection, now that I see, that I understand, is not me leaving this flesh, going to another planet or a realm called heaven to be under the authority of God because I am it. You are it. All authority in heaven and earth has been given to each one of us because we were the authority of what we can call I am, that which was before the world was. And the world now, as we know it, will be no more. For the new heaven is us, in us, within us, connected to us. We are the mind of it. No more limited to the molecules of our flesh, nor the energy waves which we constructed to keep our creation here, like robots, organic robots. I suggest to you, the light of love is coming forth now in healing. And nothing will stay the same. You see, the whole idea of a miracle is simply an act of someone doing something for which we have no explanation, so we attribute it to the supernatural. All the parables that Jesus gave us are stories into who we are and what each one of us is to understand to come into the realm of the unlimited you. This is the beginning of me being me. Understanding more fully the study of meonics. When I began to write the first person words of God over 20 years ago, there came a call for a school to teach, creators to create. To major in meonics. It was a brand new word I'd never heard before. There are many words that God has given me that in my quest to know God came through this way. But now I understand. I'm not limited to protons, electrons, and neutrons. But I'm creating meons. It's funny, I've laughed many times. You can laugh. Meons. What do people study in my school? Meology. Meonics. The study of me being me. Me before the world was. Me coming out of flesh. Me experiencing the resurrection before I die. Defeating our last enemy, death. Defeating darkness. We haven't even known the difference. Everything about religion, every religion, even the religions that don't think, that don't call themselves religion. They just call other religions religion. But all the God worship, all the worship of God afar off goes bye-bye. And God is no longer constructed in our image. God no longer keeps us here wanting heaven. Heaven is inside of each of us. The real me is you, not separate from the interconnected mind, the source that needs not syllables to express communication. Because we are a race not subject to this body, this planet, time, space, or gravity. The best word I know at the moment to speak about is we are, in fact, beings of light or beings of consciousness. We are beings of unlimitedness. And we have a uniqueness to each of us still within the framework of, like Jesus said, the Father is in me and I am in the Father. So I'm changing the name. The understanding of God will no more cause me to worship it, nor defeat my path to become the fullness of the real me. That I existed in, that I was a part of, that I enjoyed the freedom of roaming the cosmos, being anywhere I wanted to be just because I wanted to be, just because I had the thought, traveling by thought, because I didn't have this body to lug around. I created this thing and now I decreate it. I resurrect out of it. You see, we have all these terms, these religious terms, that have permeated our thinking for so many generations. But now we're coming out. We're going home. Where's home? The promised land. What is the promised land? I suggest to you, it is not heaven. It is not where God is ruling all things. It is not dealing with a God who keeps a tally of all your right and wrongs to make sure you've been good, to determine whether or not you get a Christmas present or not, whether you get into the doors of heaven. No. This is about a birth, us now using our mind to create our new creation. No longer subjugated to thought. Entering the mind of the universal me, the universal consciousness, the consciousness of source energy, which is the best words I have to try to describe this to you at this moment. I enter the realm of me. I enter my kingdom. And you're entering yours, if you will be not afraid. But there's growth. There's unlearning. And there's new knowledge. And so for you to come into the realm that doesn't just use you to be afraid of your power so that you can worship it from afar, you're coming into an adventure if you're willing, if you're not afraid to be who you really are. So I'm saying what I call God worship, worship of God, is going bye-bye. I offer you the idea that Jesus did not worship God, the God of religion, the appropriated ideas of God, a mental concept of. Maybe that's why we have the word, his Father. So now we are becoming no longer ingested by something else that's a system that uses our energy. We are divesting the love of who we are no more, and we are recognizing the love of light, where there is no slaughter, no murder, no tears, no decay, no rules, no hierarchy. Because the God that I know that has taught me says, come be me. Come be what I am. Be, I am again. And the race now that is rising from earth is the I am race of light, love, peace, all together, one. And all the ones will be one. And one will be the mind, not incarcerated by itself, to think in its own self-circular reasoning, self-corroborating, experiencing what it wants to believe. I give that up. I sacrifice my own idol of me. I'm no longer my creation of my ideas, wanting my mind to build my reality. I'm coming now into the reality of what I really am before all of this was born around me as a physical earth, a physical body. And the separation of mankind will no more encircle me. I am the feminine divine, the divine feminine. There's a tenderness and there is a nurture to what I am. And the male race of brutality that wants to put a soul into me and plug me into its network will no longer use my energy. I am white light in that I am the full, complete energy spectrum of me. Not limited to the visible spectrum of light, nor am I limited to the visceral, nor the emotional realm. The soul will no more guide me. I no more try to save it or redeem it, but to eliminate its suffering and the attachment I've had to it. I come out to be who I am, realizing before there was any source to separate me, I am. I still am. I will be again. And now I am here, and now I am going. And you will see me, and you will see me not. And you will wonder who is behind all these things. And I will tell you, you are, if you will be it. Do the works that I do. Many things change in this country now, and many will be attributed to God, and many will be attributed to Satan, and many will be controversial, mired in clay, simply wanting to make their mark in this world before they die. But I am not dying again, because I have died. And now I go, and I be who I am, asking you to be who you are, all of us one. And the message of Christ will no more be religionized, and Christ will be Christian no more. Christ will be the anointed us, because we anoint each other in the anointing of me, each one of us being the one who anoint us. Love begins at home. Love begins with you. Love begins in you. To no more slaughter each other, to no more rip our wings off, to no more be stuck to flesh. This is all about the new covenant, the new and everlasting covenant, the covenant that survives even God, because the worship of God will no more inflict its wounds of separation to not know who we are. I've surrendered, and I'm surrendering to be who I am and share this message as I can. It will become more articulate. And the powers of power will rejoice not, but the loves of love will. And the powers that have been so rejoicing in the past will wonder where their power went. Because I'm not serving their power system. and we will grow and we will understand the light that loves, the light that has no hierarchy. For what does the Father say? The Father of light? Come sit at my table while I make your enemies your footstool. But your enemies are not flesh and blood. Your enemies consist of ignorance. Realms of power that incarcerate power. But when you know who you really are, you'll be what you thought God was, actually coming in to what the Father was before the world was. If I follow Jesus at all, this is what I follow. Entering the realm of the beloved to become the beloved me, loving you, loving all equally. Seeing we existed before church did, before any Bible, before any system of thinking, thought, before any system of salvation or redemption, before any thought of any rapture. We were I am. And this is what I'm coming back into again, espousing the union of me with me, the real me, pure love light, asking you to do it too, to be the real you, to learn to be able to think with thoughts not limited to waves, not limited to words of other people, not limited to the knowledge of the past, but letting that which is I am converse with you, love you, hold you, arise you, saying this is the time for your leadership to arise. It takes guts. And it takes a lot more than faith. It simply takes surrender to learn who you really are. The real me, be. Meonics, explore. Explore the realm of meology, where you're not limited to the particles of the past. And no atomicry will sever you from what you really are again. So all creation is different. Hold on to your blessing no more that curses you. Know the difference between God of light, God of love, God of rules, slaughter, unworthiness, vengeance. No, before God was, I am. Before this world was, I am. We are coming back into again the realm that knows perfection. Creating creation again. We do now. I love you. Thank you for listening to these words. Thank you for understanding this is a path and I am on mine. And that I am articulating with the ability, with the energy that I have at this moment, the understanding of perfection coming into it again. Before God was being it. Now, no longer trying to please God, worship God, be worthy, or comply with rules. Understand, we are coming out being the original us with our original identity of the mind, unlimited, with the consciousness of creation of all power and might, recreating us to be the one I am. All of us, I am. Okay, I'm Theodore Cottingham with the School of Me. No longer worshiping God. The School of Me, where you become the real you, where you become the real me that I am is before time existed. Let us go. Let us arise. Let us understand. And let us no more hold to religion's rules, nor the laws that so favor the nonprofits, the institutions that rob us from our true joy. It all changes now. And I change it. And who am I? I am one of many ones. The one mind. The mind of the universal. That which permeates. That which is. Never separating us from us again. Our family rejoices now. We're no more in slavery to the flesh or this earth. I love you. Write me at box 34. Email me, Theodore Eureka at Gmail. I'm in Eureka Springs for now, in the USA. I love you all. Listen, learn, love, and be the true creation of you creating you again. To no longer be led by love that destroys you. There's no death here anymore. We change it all. Thank you, my love, my friend. I go now. I love you. Rejoice. We know now. We enter our kingdom. The land of light. To be one. Thank you. Good day.